Sonic Frontiers. It's been 5 years since the last mainline Sonic game, and they're trying something brand new with this new iteration. But how did it pan out? Let's talk about it. I've been looking forward to Sonic Frontiers ever since it was revealed. A lot of people were immediately turned off by how the game looked and the drastic shift in the environments and just the overall tone of the game. However, I was open to it. I was open for something new for Sonic because I feel like it's what the franchise has desperately needed for over a decade now. So while I will fully admit the IGN gameplay reveal of this game was one of the worst ways to reveal a game possible, I still saw that and was like, okay, this is something new and exciting. So I was down for it from day one. And before I move forward, I do want to say, do I think this game is for everyone? No, I don't think everyone should just play Sonic Frontiers. I think if you're a Sonic fan, then this game's probably going to be something fresh and exciting for you, but if you've stayed away from Sonic games over the past 10 to 15 years or so, then I can't say that Sonic Frontiers is going to drastically change your viewpoint on Sonic games as a whole. It's still a Sonic game. It still has somewhat clunky controls, while better, I'll get to that. It still has a convoluted story, strange gameplay, and overall just a lot of weirdness. So if you've never liked Sonic games, you're probably not going to like Sonic Frontiers. But alright, let's get into the meat and potatoes of Sonic Frontiers. I've been saying for years now that I think Sonic needed an open world. In almost every single mainline Sonic game, it was all too often that Sonic would immediately get stopped in his tracks while flying through a level, and it just wasn't fun. But thanks to the new open world in Frontiers, it doesn't happen nearly as much because you're just free to go about wherever you want. And for a game and a franchise that's all about speed and momentum, this is a great change. Sonic Frontiers obviously still has its traditional levels that are linear, where you can't control the camera and Sonic does get stopped in his tracks, but it's so great to have an open world in between those levels where you're exploring, finding new collectibles, and just freely moving around, grinding on rails, jumping, jolting, dashing, all the moves that Sonic can do without any restraints for the first time ever. And the movement feels good. That was one of my biggest worries, was that Sonic Frontiers, despite having an open world, wasn't gonna feel good, but it does. Oftentimes it feels like I'm playing an old Tony Hawk game where you're grinding on rails, doing tricks, and while the actual movement of Sonic's physics don't really make all that much sense, it's still extremely satisfying traversing the world, and that's all you can really ask for in an open world Sonic game. One thing I actually really like in Sonic Frontiers is the upgrade tree. The stuff you unlock is actually useful in the open world and in combat. You'll end up using almost everything you unlock all the time. Unlike a lot of games where there's a skill tree and you're not really utilizing anything you unlock, either because the game doesn't force you to, or because it's just not fun to do. But in Sonic Frontiers, I actually had a lot of fun unlocking the new movement abilities and attacks, all that stuff. Pretty great. A big complaint of mine over the years has been the combat in Sonic games. It's almost always just jump and then jolt into an enemy and they're dead. I'm happy that Sonic Frontiers finally opened things up a little bit. Sonic is punching, he's kicking, he's doing all those cool moves that we saw in Super Smash Bros. In an actual Sonic game now. So now, in terms of continuity, Smash Bros. Makes even more sense, because Sonic can punch and kick just as good as he can jump and dash. So yeah, the combat is pretty solid. There's a new Cyclone ability that is really satisfying, where you outline an enemy to bring down its defenses. Unfortunately, some enemies and bosses can feel very spongy, and it gets a bit repetitive on the normal difficulty. However, I did drop it down to easy to see how it was, and as far as I can tell, the actual combat isn't really much easier. The enemies just die quicker, so I almost prefer easy mode just because you're not doing the repetitive same attacks over and over. The enemies just die quicker, but Sonic still dies just as fast. The game doesn't really feel much easier. The enemies just aren't as spongy, so I might end up keeping it on easy, though maybe there's a big difference in late game. I'm not sure yet. I'm still making my way through this game. But as of right now, I think I might prefer easy mode just because it cuts the time to kill enemies in half. And like I'm saying, it's not like the game is extremely challenging. It just takes away some of that spongy, repetitive nature that's a part of Sonic Frontiers combat. So as I mentioned before, there's a brand new open world formula where you're unlocking new levels in the open world and finding tons of collectibles along the way. There's almost too much collectibles. Like, I'm honestly losing track of what does what at this point. But basically, it's sort of similar to Mario 64. You have an overworld where you're unlocking new areas to go in, and you're finding secrets in that open world along the way. And then you have the actual levels where it's your traditional Sonic level, and you're actually doing the normal Sonic thing. And you might recognize some of them pretty well, but all in all, I did like the structure of Sonic Frontiers much more than any previous Sonic game over the last decade or so. And as for the open world, because a lot of people do not like how it looks, they say it looks like an Unreal Engine tech demo, I gotta say, I like the ambient tone of this open world, how it's raining, it's sad, it's moody. I like it. It's something different for Sonic, and like I'm saying, you're still getting those traditional Sonic levels in the game. It's like nothing we've ever seen in the Sonic series before, and it really reminds me of something like Breath of the Wild, where there's not much music, it's very quiet, very somber, and just kind of sad feeling. It's something different. It is weird that it's in a Sonic game, but honestly, I don't really have anything negative to say about it. I enjoy traversing the open world. I like the visual style of it. I like the tone. And at this point, new is all I can ask for with Sonic, because I feel like it desperately needed something new, and I do appreciate this brand new element to Frontiers. Unfortunately, the visuals of Sonic Frontiers aren't top-notch or anything. It doesn't look like a modern 2022 Series X PS5 game. I'm playing on Series X. But yeah, the graphics overall, they don't look great. A lot of the textures look very muddy and ugly. Thankfully, when you're moving at high speeds, it looks fine, but overall, I gotta say the graphics did disappoint me a bit, and I expected better after such a long development cycle, but they probably spent most of that time working on this brand new structure for the Sonic game, so hopefully if they stick with this structure and do another Sonic game like it, they can focus more on the presentation and the graphical fidelity and all that stuff. And as for the performance, there are frame drops in the open world. It's not like perfect or anything. Like I said, I'm playing on Series X and S. I did notice some hiccups along the way, but nothing that really pulled me out of the experience. As I've mentioned before, I'm not much of a performance guy or anything, but I did want to mention it in this review. And one more thing to note in terms of the graphics, I actually did jump into Sonic Unleashed and Sonic Generations on Series X, which has the free remaster like enhancements. They play at like 60 frames in 4K on the Series X. And they do look better than Sonic Frontiers. Like, I just gotta say, like, those games still look visually really appealing and really great, whereas Sonic Frontiers looks fine, not awful, but not as good as Generations or Unleashed. Those games just look really good. They had a great art style that has aged really well with the modern enhancements that the Series X offers. Speaking of the presentation, though, I actually love the load screens in this game because they show, like, a tutorial of how you do certain things that you might have forgotten about or maybe just don't know in general. So I really appreciated that, how you can just learn on the fly while the game is loading. I feel like so many games don't utilize the load screens in any fun or interesting way, so I really did like the tutorialization of the load screens in Frontiers. The voice acting. This is a brand new voice for Sonic. However, not a different voice actor. As you might know, Roger Craig Smith has been doing Sonic for quite a while now, and he actually announced not too long ago that he was retiring from Sonic. They didn't want to move forward with his voice. And then not too long after that, he said, nope, never mind, I am coming back as Sonic. And now we know what they did, like what they decided on, which was Roger Craig Smith is going to continue as Sonic and just do a brand new voice for him. He sounds way different. He has a bit lower voice now. His personality and his voice kind of reminds me of like Nathan Drake, but almost with like a more serious tone, which you wouldn't expect that from Sonic, but I think it works. I like this new Sonic. I like that they kept Roger Craig Smith. I really love him as a voice actor. I loved his Chris Redfield and I loved his Batman a lot. So I was really happy with his new Sonic voice, and all the other actors are back as well. I believe they're doing slightly different voices as well. I noticed that Eggman sounded a bit different, but it is the same actor as well. So maybe they just decided, you know what, let's keep our cast and just have people do different styles of their characters that they did in the past. So I think it's cool that they kept the original voice cast and just had them do different style voices for those same characters. It's really awesome. Capcom needs to take note instead of recasting their characters every single game, so we build zero connection with them. I also had to shout out the soundtrack for this game. Sonic has been known for its great original music in the past, but I really liked some of the metalcore style songs they included in this game. They often play during some big boss battles, and they are just really good. As someone who grew up in the hardcore and metalcore scene, these songs bring back a lot of memories for some of my old favorite metalcore bands, so I just wanted to shout that out. So I think I went over most of the things I wanted to. The new open world formula is great. The traditional levels are awesome. Sonic feels better than ever to control. I also think that this is a win for Sonic Team, and it's been a while since they've had one. As I said before, Forces was 5 years ago. They took their sweet time with this game, and they tried something new and ambitious for Sonic, and I think it generally has received a positive reception. I've seen nothing but positivity and some gripes and complaints, but nothing overbearing or super negative about the game. Most people just think, yeah, it's a good game. Not amazing, not fantastic, not life-changing. If you like Sonic, you're probably gonna like this game. I'm happy that there's now a game to coincide with these movies, and probably just keep getting bigger and bigger as the next movie comes out. One thing is for sure, Sonic is back. Not in just the movies, in the video games. Sonic is back. Thanks a lot for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up. If you didn't, hit that thumbs down. And as always, please subscribe if you're new to the place. I'm trying to bring some life back to the Destructoid channel, so it would really mean a lot if you hit that subscribe button. And like I said, let me know what you think of Sonic Frontiers in the comments. I'll talk to you guys later. See ya.